Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We had a little bit of challenges, but we're here. Thank you. We're here. Thank you, Nancy, Mary, and Anita for joining us today. I really appreciate you taking the time and your willingness to participate in our discussion for today. Um, and our chat today is about um, heirloom quilts versus utilitarian quilts. And so we're going to just share a little bit about our thoughts and feelings behind having an heirloom quilt, um, or if we have, and how we feel about them. And the question at hand is, are modern quilters sacrificing the longevity of heirloom status for immediate artistic expression? So we just we're going to share our thoughts on that, heirloom versus utilitarian quilts. So I have with me today Nancy Goudot Martin, Mary Matthews, Anita Pinckney, and myself. And so we will just share a little bit about ourselves, and the quilts that we have to talk about. So I'm going to share my screen now. Oh, first, Nancy, if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself before we proceed.
Okay. Hi, my name's Nancy, and I'll say it. It's Gaudette Martin. You were close. I have been sewing and crafting and quilting for so many years, uh, probably about 60. I do have some very old quilts, and I'm just going to get right into the quilts. I have a quilt in my possession that is approximately 85 years old, and it has a story. And I'm always thinking about what is the story behind the quilt. Like I love to go to the museums. We have the Lowell Museum, a quilt museum in Lowell, Massachusetts, and it has some of the oldest quilts. It has Civil War quilts. It just has a lot of old quilts. I love the stories, and so, anyways, I have several old quilts. I have new quilts. I know one of the questions was about using quilts. I don't let anyone use my old quilts. They don't hold up. The older they are, they don't hold up as well. I do have one that I'll show you, and especially
Mhm.
the bindings, because back then the quality of the fabric wasn't, they just used what they had. And so the bindings start to fall apart. You can actually see the quilt starting to deteriorate. And but I make a lot of quilts for the sake of making, like the kids want something. My grandkids all have quilts. My kids have quilts. I don't, not that I don't care. I always care when you put time and effort into a quilt. I let them, whatever they want to use it for, as long as it doesn't go to one of the dogs. Uh, as long as the kids are using them, I have no problem. I don't know. Are we going to start talking
Yes.
about the specific? Okay. I don't know which
Okay.
picture
Yep.
comes first.
So here's your first picture.
Okay. Um, this quilt is not real old. It's about 20 years old. I decided to make a quilt to represent my family. So the picture it's a house. And it was a pattern I saw. I said, "Oh, this would be so cool." So the picture in the middle is my parents when they got married. Um, on the left is there were six kids. That's all of us when we were younger. And then the pictures on the right are as we got older. In the middle on the second floor is each family. And on the top is the house that we grew up in, and a picture of probably one of the last pictures of my parents together before my father passed away. The picture on the bottom, the significance of that is I had a brother that was handicapped, and he used to like to be on that piece of machinery, and he was so proud of himself. So it was a picture I saw. I said I have to put it in on the lawn. Um, but anyways, that was just a special piece I made to remember my family. And a lot of people do that today. They take pictures. They have all these old pictures, and what do you do with them? So I did one for my family and one for my in-laws. And
Very nice.
anyways, I don't know. Are we people asking questions about it or
I haven't seen any yet. I'll see when we
okay.
get more.
I'm not paying attention to that.
Yeah, we're just gonna go through talk about your photos and then we'll revisit
Uh,
the questions at the
okay.
end.
This is another very, very special quilt. I actually have two of them, and a lot of people refer to this as red work. The embroidery floss is actually it's like a hot pink.
Mhm.
So the story behind it is my mother-in-law's best friend took coloring pages from kids' coloring books, traced them, and then on it was like a muslin, it really thin. It came from one of the factories because Lowell had a lot of material factories, and she embroidered all those different characters, all those different pictures, and I don't know. It had to be about 25 years ago, maybe 30 years ago. She handed them to me and she said, do something.
Mhm.
And I said, okay. It took a while. And then I finally, put it together. And once it was together and quilted and everything, I'm like, wow, that really looks good. I just like it, you know,
Mhm, mhm.
it's special.
Yes.
And so the story behind this one is this is the oldest quilt I own.
Mhm.
And if you look up, like close up to some of the, to look closer at it, you can see where a lot of the wear is. I'm estimating the quilt has to be about 85 years old.
Mhm.
So the story behind it is my mother-in-law's best friend's mother was the quilter. And the fabric she had, I'm sure some people would recognize some of the fabric. They were like shirts. So I keep saying like Lowell, Mass was that's what they did. They made fabric. And so there was like lots of like cottons and wools and stuff. This is definitely cotton. Um, I'll say something funny. Some of the fabric looks like boxer shorts. But this one, my mother-in-law's best friend's mother made that for my mother-in-law and my father-in-law when they were getting married.
Mhm.
Problem was he was in the service in 39. They were supposed to get married in 40 approximately. And he was in the service and they wouldn't let him out. He didn't get out until I think 45 when the war ended. And that's when they got married. But the quilt was made way before they got married. It's just very special. I know I met the woman once that made it, and then she passed away. She's probably 100. She would be 140 years old or something. I
Mhm.
don't know. But the quilt's special.
Nice. Beautiful.
And okay. Um, it's not really a quilt, but it's special. So the doilies that made the snow for the snowman, my mother made these. This I made this right after she passed away. She died in August. I made it for Christmas. They were Christmas ornaments for all the girls, my nieces. And so, anyways, my mother made the doilies, and I said, I'm just going to use them. Um, she loved lace. There's a whole story on the left. Her favorite color was blue. The lace on it was her lace. The buttons on the chest of the snowman were my mother's mother. It could even gone further back. I have buttons that are like 125 to 150 years old. And those are, you have old buttons when you look at, they're on cards, they're strung together. Some of them are made with glass, those are velvet. Um, the black buttons on the top are also old buttons. The mouth is old. The only new one is the orange.
Mhm.
It just wasn't a color they used back in the day. But all the girls love them. They hang them up every Christmas. So, and
Yeah.
I think that there were four of them. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's it.
Mhm. Well, thank you for sharing your um, family treasures and things that
Yeah.
bring you joy. And so they are all beautiful work, and we appreciate you sharing with us.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So next is Miss Mary Matthews, and if you'd like to tell us a little bit about yourself, Mary, Miss Mary, before we proceed with your photos.
Okay. Yeah, my name's Mary Matthews, and I started quilting probably about 10 or 15 years ago. Never had any real interest in doing it myself, even though my grandmother made quilts, which you'll see two of her quilts. And but I got started because I went on a quilting retreat with my mother and her friends. And I was just going because it was just something that I could share with my mother, a trip. And of course, the ladies there got me interested, gave me a sewing machine to work on because I said, "Well, I don't have a sewing machine." They're like, "We have plenty of sewing machines here. Take one."
Mm,
And so I made a little square of a quilt. It was probably about 12 square inches. And I was just so proud of that little piece. And so working with my mother and her friend, Miss Vera Hall, who some of you might know. And so I started quilting. And actually, at the second quilting retreat, I took my best friend. And so she started quilting. So we sort of was under my mother's foot as far as learning what to do, what not to do. And so me and my best friend had been quilting for about 15 years. And that's how I got interested in it. Now, my mom, who up until let's say about 20 years ago did not quilt, she made clothes.
mm,
And at some point in time, she said, well, people are finding it cheaper just to go to the store to buy their clothes as opposed to paying you to make their clothes. And so her friend, Vera Hall, got her interested in quilting. So that's how the whole thing of quilting in my family started. And my mother, she just exceeded so well that when I would see her quilts, I would just be in awe that she could make quilts the way that she did. I was always surprised because we would had a meeting we would meet every Wednesday at this place, and we would quilt. My best friend and I, we were newies, and so the older women there really helped us along also. Um, and my mother would say, "Look at this pattern," and I would say, "Oh, mom, that is beautiful." She said, "I think I'm going to try to make that,"
mm.
and she would come in the next week, and the quilt would be done.
Wow. Wow.
I mean, she worked that fast.
Mm,
And she said, as a little girl, uh, she thought she would never quilt because when my grandmother quilted, was working on a quilt, she would always have my mother to hold the fabric. And my mother said, and I didn't like it because everybody else was outside playing. But I can tell you, when my mother started quilting, she just grew so fast.
mm,
She got awards for submitting quilts to the Howard County. Um, I think it was called a Howard County Fair. Every year she would submit, and they would judge the different quilts and the different garments. And she always got a prize.
nice, nice. So we're gonna
Always. I
see
mean,
we'll see a couple of your quilts that your mom made, right?
yeah,
So,
yeah.
all right. So I'm gonna start sharing your photos.
Okay.
Okay. So you can tell us about this
Now,
one.
now that's a quilt that my grandmother made.
Mm,
Um, One of the stories behind that, well, you can see there were pieces of different fabrics because they made quilts not like we do now, but they made quilts because they needed them to keep warm. And so she used old clothing to make quilts. And so when my grandmother passed, she had a stack of quilts. And
mm,
so, what the family did, they started with my grandmother's children. They were to pick a quilt from the group. And after her children got a quilt, they started with the grandchildren. Well, I am, I think, the third grandchild.
mm,
And so, I believe that this is the quilt. I'm trying to think because it was one of the quilts I got. and one of the quilts my mother got.
Mm.
Now, I think this is the quilt that I received, if I'm not mistaken. This is the quilt that I received.
Yes.
And I never really used it a lot because I just wanted it to stay intact.
Yes, absolutely. It makes sense.
Hmm.
These,
So
you
that
know,
was
the fabrics are different and they don't hold up and wash. So, like you said, you chose to keep it so that it would last and keep the
right,
longevity behind it, which is makes
right,
a lot of
right,
sense. Yes.
right,
We'll go to the
right.
next photo. I think
Okay.
this is a close up of that.
Now that is yeah, just a close up so that you can maybe see the hand stitching,
Hmm. Absolutely.
because they didn't, of course, they didn't have long arm machines back then. So in order for you to put your sandwich, your pieces together, you had to sort together by hand. So I made this photo so you could see the hand stitches that
Yeah.
she made on the quilts.
Yes. Beautiful. Okay. And
And that's the back. Yeah, so that was my quilt, because that's the back of my quilt.
mhm,
So that's what she used.
yeah, very nice.
And as you can see, because it is old, it did have faded spots in it.
Mhm. So this dates back to what, probably what, maybe 50 years or longer ago?
I would think so, yes.
Mhm. Nice, nice. And here's another.
And that is the quilt that was given to my mother.
Mm,
Now the edges, like the lady said prior, Nancy said, my mother used her quilt. And so the edges are frayed. And I had purchased material to put new binding on it. I have not done it yet.
mm,
And I sort of didn't know, should I leave it like it is or repair the binding? So I haven't done anything yet, but on the edges, it's frayed. And I will tell you this, my mother at some point in time stopped using it because it was frayed, and she made a replica of this quilt
oh, nice. Okay, nice.
that I tried to get when she passed, but I didn't get it.
Oh, okay. Well, at least you had that one, so that's
Yeah,
good.
and so one of the things that my mother said about this quilt was when she was under this quilt, she felt like my grandmother was hugging her.
Mm,
And so when it got so frayed around the edges, she made another one because she said that she still wanted to be able to feel that my grandmother, whose name was Mariah, as a matter of fact,
okay.
it just always made her feel warm and cared for, because she felt like she could just feel my grandmother around her.
Yeah. So she wanted to preserve that. So instead of
Yes,
continuing to use it,
right.
then she just replicated it. So that
Yeah.
was,
So it's
yeah.
one other thing I want to tell you about these quilts. Uh, my grandmother and grandfather was sharecroppers down in North Carolina,
Mhm.
and of course they worked on the farm, uh, and picking cotton. And I had an uncle to tell me that one of the things my grandfather would do when he was working on the cotton field, each day that he worked, he would take a little piece of cotton and put it in his pocket,
Mm,
and he would give it to my grandmother for her to put between the quilts.
mm. Okay.
Hmm.
A lot of history and legacy behind these heirloom quilts.
Yes,
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 yes.
family treasures.
Yeah. Now that's the back of the quilt that my mother had.
Hmm. Nice.
And I think I
I
did
think,
a
yeah, close
close
up.
up of
Hmm.
the
Yeah.
stitches. Those are the
Mhm.
stitches that my grandmother made on the
Yeah.
back of the quilt.
Yes. And it's worn and was used, and then it
Hmm.
now it's just
Hmm.
preserved for
Hmm. Hmm.
safekeeping.
Yeah. Yes.
Nice hand stitching.
Yes. This is a quilt that my mother made within the last 6 or 7 years. She also had quilts in. I'm trying to think of the Afro American Quilt Club here in Baltimore, and they would do quilt shows at Morgan State University.
Mm.
And so one of the years, their theme was anything in and around Baltimore or Maryland. And so my mother did this quilt, um, and you can see the Washington Monument. Um, I can't remember everything up close, but these are the different places in and around Baltimore that she put on the quilts. And these
Wow.
are quilts that she used. I'm trying to think of the technique that she used, where you cut out the different pieces and put them on the quilt, and you sort of sew around them to attach them.
Applique.
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 Thank you. I couldn't think
Yeah.
of the word at the time.
Yeah, that's okay.
Applique.
Yeah. Yeah, she
Yeah.
did a beautiful job. It
Yeah.
definitely, for those who know about Baltimore, would a lot of these places would look familiar to them for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she
So
did.
that was one of the quilts that was at the Morgan quilt show.
Hmm. Okay,
And I
and
think I had one more. That was another one that she did.
hmm
And you can see she did the aquarium. Um Morgan, one of the dorms at Morgan. I think one of the watch houses, not watch lighthouses.
hmm
Uh, the Afro American Reginald Lewis Afro African Museum,
nice.
and I don't know what the rest of them are.
Yeah, nice. She was a great quilter for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now,
Now, that was the first generation. My mother, my grandmother. This is a quilt. It's called the Baltimore Album quilt. That's the pattern.
mm,
And this is the quilt that my mother made for me and she presented to me for my 60th birthday.
nice, beautiful, beautiful, and it looks like applique, I guess.
It is, yes.
Is that like
Yes.
applique?
Yeah,
Beautiful.
all the flowers, and she did them individually, then put them onto the quilt. Very very tedious work.
Yeah, I could see a lot of
But
details.
she did, and I had no idea, she
Mm.
gave it to me at a party that my sister had for me. Yeah.
Uh, and
Hmm. Hmm.
how she this is the back. This is or one of the inside the one of the
Yeah,
flowers.
that's the label she had. Mom for Mary Matthews, 2006. That's when I got it.
Oh, nice, beautiful,
Hmm. Thank you.
quite a quilter. Yes, and then this piece here.
Now this that was let me see, grandmother, mother, and now we're on to this is a quote that I did
Mm-hmm.
that was is called Crossroads, and that quote was also in the show at Morgan State
Mm,
University for their quote show.
nice. And now I think this last one is you.
And that's me standing in front of the quilt just to show you how big that quilt was.
It
I
is
don't
huge.
think I ever do that one again.
Oh.
Yep.
Now, would you pass that on to would someone children or someone want that at some point, or would you
Well,
share it?
probably
Or?
it'd probably go to one of my sons.
Hmm.
And I've made quilts for both of them. I've made quilts for my nieces and nephews in my family,
Hmm.
and for friends.
Hmm.
And people will say, you should make quilts to sell them, but it's I've never sold a quilt because I kind of quilt when I want to
Hmm.
and don't want to be under the strain of a deadline.
It makes sense.
And I pick a pattern that I like.
Right. And you take your time because this one is huge. You remember the size that this particular one?
Oh wow.
It looks
No,
huge.
right now I don't remember what
Yeah.
size it was, but it,
Well,
it was pretty big.
yes, it is.
It was pretty big, and the border around it with the flowers in it.
Mhm.
If the ladies in here, they know about quilting, how you'll see fabric and you'll say, I don't know what I'm going to use it for, but I like it, so I'll buy it. So
Mhm.
that fabric with the flowers in it, I
Mhm.
had for years. I
Mm.
had for years, and so the fabric that I used for the different squares was what was it? Oh, I can't even think of the name of, but it was old new fabric made with new threads, but it was a old came from an old fabric era. I can't
Oh,
remember.
okay.
I should have wrote all this stuff down, but I
That's
didn't.
okay. That's
And
fine.
so when I put those squares together, I'm like, well, what border are you going to put on it? And I went back to this fabric that I had gotten years ago, and it really went well with the squares that I had. So that's what I used for my border.
Yeah, perfect combination. It worked out
Yeah,
well. Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
So my grandmother quilted, my mother quilted, and unfortunately, right now in my family, as far as I know,
mhm,
I'm the last quilter. Nobody else has any interest in quilting.
yeah,
And of course, I have a grandson, so he is into sports. He's not into wanting to do any quilting. So
yeah, yeah,
yeah, so that part of it is leaves me a little sad that
yeah.
that quilting, as you call it, legend is not going to continue in my family.
Well, you never know. One never knows, but
Yeah,
from the way it looks
yeah,
at the moment, that might be the way it will be. But
yes,
who knows?
yes,
But
yes,
it's beautiful that you had the three generations to even attest to, because not everybody has that, and that's my story. I don't have that, so that's beautiful
yeah,
that you did have that. Yeah.
yeah.
So.
And one other thing, hi Anita, she just don't remember me.
Oh, she's. And
So
speaking of which,
thank you.
so no, thank you. Appreciate it, Mary. You sharing your beautiful work and your family, legacy, and thank you for sharing with us. So now we're gonna move on to Miss Anita. So
Okay.
you could tell us a little bit about yourself, Anita.
Hi. Thank you, Mary. And I do remember you. We had dinner one night together, so I do
Right.
remember. All right. So, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Anita, and I don't consider myself to be a quilter. I am a fan favorite. And I did get started with even loving quilts through my grandmother. However, by the time my grandmother was born in 1874, and she died when she was 100. So I got a chance to meet her and know
Wow.
her. But by the time I came around, she wasn't talking or quilting. Well, she talked, but not quilting. And uh, back during that time, they didn't call it dementia, but certainly I'm sure that's what she had. Senility is basically what it was called in the late 60s, early 70s. So she actually, so I love quilting, and Mary, who introduced me to this forum that I'm in currently with you guys, she shared with me that, she gets involved in many, many artistic events and initiatives, and helps me to just bring out my artistic abilities and the art that I love. And I'm sort of a person who likes to observe. And I do love doing things by hand. So my grandmother, the quilt that she had, she probably made several. Three made it to my house. And so it was for her last son. She had 10 children, and the last one was my father, and he had four girls. I was the last child, and my brother was right before me. So she made three quilts. And I always tell my sisters, because I don't really have a personal one that she made for me, but they were kind of passed along. They took them to college. They brought them back home. One was left at home while they were at college while I was there. So I just owned it. And so the quilt that she made is the picture that I took for Lisa to share. And I actually have done nothing with this quilt because I just felt it was so authentic.
Mm,
And it was, I felt like because my grandmother actually did it, her hands were on it. The cotton, my understanding of the story is that it was cotton that maybe some of her forefathers had picked. The material actually was through the generations as well. She died at 100, so in 1974, I think I was about 12 in 74. Maybe a little bit older. Yeah, 12, maybe 13. Anyway, so when she passed, and even before she passed, and just having that quote, I just felt like a part of her was always with me. And so when she did pass, I really kind of took the possession of it, and I still sleep with it. I still hold it. I touch it, and even though it's frayed and it's really falling apart on many ends. I have chosen not to do it at some level, but at some level, I'm like, oh, I want to do it. I want to do something with it. And I don't want to use a sewing machine. I can sew. I'm not an expert, but I can sew. But I like doing things by hand. I like doing needle and thread. Because it's like a calming effect for me. So I really have not learned how to quilt. I certainly have watched Mary, who does it frequently and often, and seen her work. And the cotton that is actually in the quilt that I have, actually, I just remember younger, it's still having sticks in it. So like when it started to fray, it would have sticks. So, whatever, that was real cotton that had been picked, and that those sticks in there, I always wondered what it was. And, after learning history and all of that, I was like, oh, this was probably the sticks that they actually picked from the cotton that she used to do that. And it's not thick at all. And, I don't know if it was really white, but it's more of a beige color. The cotton is more of a beige type of color. But anyway, so it's just meaningful to me. I always say good morning, grandmommy, good morning, good night, grandmommy, and just kind of touch it and feel it, and just keep it on my bed. During college, I didn't take it with me because I wanted to preserve it. So it stayed at home, in my parents' home, and home I grew up in. And then I got married, divorced, and all of that, but kept it close to me. So I still have it. And I think it probably is over 100 years old. I really would say that it is. And just looking at the material, and like I said, I probably do want to stitch and fix some of it, but at some level, I'm like, oh, this is so authentic. Do I really want to do it? But I do think I need to do it because it really is starting to fall apart even a little bit more. So
And
I would.
without fair, let's show this is we bring you
What's that?
right to it. Here it is.
Oh, okay.
Glory. Yes.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
So you can see the oldness of it, and just, I don't know, it's just special to me. And I probably would like to learn how to maybe just stitch a few of especially maybe the ends around the edging of it, and all of the appliques that are in there. But I have not done that yet. And I know Mary constantly is encouraging me to get engaged in that. And so when I retire, which will be in 2 years, I am planning to get more engaged around this quilt, and maybe do, even make my own. Perhaps I don't have children, but I do have lots of nieces and nephews that may engage in that, and I probably will pass this on to them as well, particularly probably my first nephew's children. But that's my story.
Yeah. So it'd be interesting if you can restore it somewhat, but still maintaining the integrity and the value that it has for you. Because like you said, this is what your grandmother's hands has touched it and made it, and that it was something that she did with her own hands. So it's very special to you. But
yeah, it is. It is. But yes, so yeah, that's the back of it. So just plain. But as you can see, the frayed and the stitching that would need to happen. So I will do it. I will just make it a little neater. But just the look and feel of it. Just I don't. It's almost like I don't want to do a whole lot to it. I just want to preserve it as it is.
So, but you say you have it on your bed. You still kind of
use I keep it on every night. I say good morning, good evening, good night.
Wow. So it's not just the heirloom; it's a utilitarian because you use it and whatnot. And so, but it's a blessing to have, especially since you know that your grandma's hands made it. And
yep,
beautiful.
Absolutely.
Very nice. Well, thank you for sharing with us. And I'm sure one of these days, like you said, once you retire, you'll find it, time, or you'll be able to have the time to devote to figuring out how to restore it or what you could do to
exactly
Yeah.
Keep it in its original state, but yet, so that it'll last maybe another 100 years or whatever.
Exactly. Yep.
Um, it's a whole science to storing heirloom quilts, and how do you take care of them to preserve them. So it's a lot to it, but there's a lot
Yes.
of information out there, and maybe you'll be able to figure out how you can, maintain it to
Hmm.
to pass on to future generations. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes.
So thank you for sharing your story with us. We appreciate it. And so now I'm gonna move on to me. And I've been at this for a few years now, 13 years or so. I don't make a lot of utilitarian quilts. I don't make a lot of bed quilts. I do mostly more art quilting. So I'm more of an art quilter. And so I didn't grow up with my anyone in my family quilting that I know of. I've never heard of anyone on either side of my family who were quilters. So I guess I would be considered the first generation of quilters, and have a couple of granddaughters and a grandson. So who knows, maybe one of these days they would take an interest in it. So at the moment, the only piece that I have that would be considered an heirloom quilt slash wall hanging is this piece that I did about 13 years ago, maybe 14 years ago or so. No, excuse me, maybe 12, 13 years ago. And it's a family, it's about my family history. So it's about on my family's father side of the family. And I just when I had just started learning how to quilt for the most part, and I learned how to that they had the you could print the images on paper of fabric.
Yeah.
And I didn't know when I did it that I should have ironed like some interfacing behind it to make the pictures a little stiffer, to give them a little more, to make them a little sturdier. But I put together this wall hanging, and I brought it to a family reunion a number of years ago. And so basically, there's the gentleman in the middle is my great grandfather and my great grandmother. And then they're up top here, the lady in the middle up top is his mother, his mother, my grandfather, so my great great grandmother. And then the lady in the blue and light blue and dark blue up in the corner, that's my father's mother, so that's my paternal grandmother. And so these were just photographs that I was able to get a hold of. And I think this one down here on the bottom was the last family reunion that they had, where the siblings were able to get together, my grandmother's brothers and sisters, and a couple of sets of twins in there. And so that was pretty much probably the last family reunion that they had. So like I said, I was new to the quilting at that point, and so a lot of rookie mistakes, but at the end of the day, it would be considered an heirloom quilt because it's about my family history. And I don't know who would get it, who would want it, but it's here for whoever might want it. But it's here for the taking when it's time to take it, because I'm not planning on going anywhere anytime soon for them to take it. So from my lips to God's ears. But anywho, so this is it's close to an heirloom quilt that I am aware of in my family. So I was glad to be able to put it together. And this is the back of it. And I named it Roots. So when I saw this fabric, it looked like trees and roots and everything. So I named it Roots and attached scripture to it. And so 2014 is when I made it. So yeah, so this is
Very
my
nice.
thank you, my representation of an heirloom quilt. And so I don't know if I do another one, or if I would make a bed quilt or not, but you never know. Who knows? Never know. Never know. So that was it as far as our presentation is considered of our pictures. So I'm going to stop sharing, and then we can just go back to chatting about. I think they said that when I Googled about an heirloom quilt, it said an heirloom quilt is a specific type of quilt created to endure and be handed down within a family. So basically, Nancy's the quilt that from your mother-in-law, that's handed
Yeah.
down. And same thing with Mary and Anita. So we all have something from our family members that, well, mine starts with me, but it would eventually
Mhm.
be passed down. And so I think that we can safely say that we all have heirloom quilts. And
Yeah.
we're grateful for them being in our families, and you know we there's a question that it says, do you think modern quilts do you think that modern quilters sacrifice the longevity slash heirloom status for immediate artistic expression? So how do you feel about like heirloom quilts versus modern artistic expression? Do we think it's different now than it was in the past, how they viewed quilts?
I think it's a little different, and I'll say this. Um, I know with me, I don't have the even though I'm retired, I don't have the time to sit and do hand quilting, which I think is different than back in my grandmother's
Hmm.
time that she lived, where there wasn't a lot of other activities going on. So at least that's my thing. And that
Hmm.
they had time to do that. I know now, even though I'm retired, uh, it's like I'm staying busy now and I'm not working really, but I don't think I have the patience to sit down and do the hand quilting like my grandmother did. And even with um, my mother did one quilt that's hand quilted, which I'm proud to say I have.
Mm,
Okay. But the rest of her quilts that she did was quilted on the long arm machine.
mm,
And all of my quilts quilted on the long arm machine because
Hmm.
I just haven't sat down to do the hand quilting.
Yeah.
And I think it really is about time now. Somebody else might find something different, but for me, I haven't been able to do it. And that's the difference between me and my friends who quilt now as opposed to olden days.
Yeah.
yeah,
You know,
modern quilters tend to, well, we have the advances of technology,
yes,
and so
that's
we
true.
were,
Right,
trying to get things done, quicker,
right,
whereas they took their
right.
time. And like I said, when you see that things are hand stitched because they, and these big quilts that they made for, functional quilts, and they
Mm-hmm.
hand stitched them, that definitely gives it more of an heirloom type of a feel to it.
True,
And,
true,
you know,
true.
and
But as far as the feeling, I can tell you this: the quilts that I've given to family members, the fact that it's quilted on a long arm, haven't really made a difference as to how they feel about the quilts. They're always very happy.
Mhm.
Um, I had one nephew. I asked him. I said, Corey. I said, "Where's your quilt?" And he said, "Oh, Aunt Mary, I have it put away." And I said, "Corey," he said, "but it's special and I want to keep." I said, "But Corey, I want you to use it. Take it out and use it sometime." So one of the really pictures that I like, I had gone to his house and he was taking a nap. And I went into his room and he was taking a nap and he was wrapped up in a quilt that I had made for him. And so that picture was very special. So
Hmm.
I don't think that being quilted on the long arm has taken away from how that person feel when they receive a quilt, that they understand that you did just for them.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
I'll,
So
I'll,
go ahead. Go
I'll,
ahead.
I'll just hop in. I've been sewing and quilting. I mean, I'm sitting here thinking, oh my gosh, I got some like old pieces like that are in the hope chest that I did when I was a teenager. And I come from a long line of, what do they call them now? Sewists. They called them seamstress back then.
Yeah.
Uh, it's in the blood, right? And I think I forget who mentioned it, but I'm looking for one of my kids to, take over the sewing. I have a lot of machines. I have one, my grandson. He absolutely loves coming over. He's helped me make a quilt that's it's a breakfast table, right? And he picked out all the fabric, and I was so thrilled to be working with him. Like, he loves coming over. Meme, do you need help? I can help you. And him and his sister have so many quilts. I make special quilts for them. He's a scout, and I made him recently. This is probably the last one for the kids. Uh, I found a panel, and it had the tent, the scout tent, it had the campfire, it had all that stuff. And I made it a little bit different. And I quilted it on my long arm. It doesn't matter. As long as it's quilted. Meme, I can't use it. I love it. I can't sleep with it. I'm like, why not? He said, I have to look at it. So he
Mhm.
absolutely loves. And I know, I've made, like, I think, and no, Mary, you're the one that had the huge quilt. You were standing in front of that quilt. It
Yes.
looks like the California King quilt that I made for my son and my daughter-in-law when they got married.
Mhm.
There's another one, right? He actually embroiders. My son does. He said it helps my stress. That quilt is so big. They love it. They absolutely love, and that's what makes me want to do the quilt. I love making quilts, and I've made them and I've sold them, and I think it was, again, Mary saying that, what stress, like getting it done for a certain amount of time. And yeah, you know, I just love I love fabric. I'm a fabric snob at my age. I
Yes.
think, right, right. I love beautiful fabric, but just think, years ago they didn't have that. Like,
Right.
all the antique quilts I have, it was made from
Oh,
leftover fat, like
Right.
shirts. Yeah,
mhm.
Right.
it was.
Right.
And Anita, I just want to throw this in. I've looked into repairing antique quilts, because the quilt that's in the picture, my mother-in-law had that on her bed for 60 some odd years. How I got it, I knew the value of the quilt. So selfishly, I took it
Mm.
and I put it on our bed, and then I took it off. I took it off because I could see how it was weakening. I looked up a YouTube on how to fix an antique quilt.
Hmm.
I don't know if I could, even so, I don't know if I could do it. It takes a lot of hand stitching, and I'm not into that. But they have YouTubes on how to do that. So
Okay,
Mm.
good to know. Yeah, I'm
yeah,
sure YouTube has everything,
yeah,
but yeah,
they
I
do.
definitely will look into that as well.
Yeah,
And look, when I start trying to repair this, when I can have more time, I probably will say, "Oh, I need a sewing machine." That's probably what I'll end up saying.
Yeah.
Um, but to your question, Lisa, about heirloom versus the artistic nature, I think there is probably some combination of people's interest in that. I think quilting is probably an heirloom theory because people, when you think of quilting, you think of maybe something generational. You think of quilts that have been passed down. You think of why people made quilts, and that it was probably to keep warm, and also to because maybe it was very soothing and relaxing
mhm,
during a stressful time, at least for African Americans who were dealing with a lot during that time, but also people who just enjoy doing it. So I think the artistic nature and the heirloom quality are something that are intrinsic. I don't think maybe you can really separate one from the other, and you probably can, but I think if we look at it from just from a general perspective, I think that people do it because of the ancestry of it, but I think it does become our artistic feature, because you do incorporate that history and ancestry when you are making the quilt, or if you are enjoying a quilt, whether you're actually using it or whether you just have it as a heirloom. But I think there's an artistic quality, because I think the artistic nature that I see of my grandmother's quilt, even though it is older, I think it represents some level, not of just ancestry, but some level of her artistic, what she was thinking about at that time, her artistic ability that she was weaving into that quilt that she hand did. So I do think that's important. And I was gonna, what I forgot to say too is I travel quite a bit, and so what I try to do is to get fabric from every place that I go. And so I have all of this fabric in my house, either to make some clothing, or, as I'm listening to all of you, possibly do some quilting around that as well, in terms of trying to provide maybe an heirloom that I pass on to, like I said, my nieces and maybe particularly my nephews as well. You never know. But I do think that it is, in terms of thinking about, my future in doing some of this, and, the travels and getting from different places. And my grandmother lived in Mobile, Alabama. This is my father's mother. And so I go back there often. And so just even, and her house is still there, and somebody, one of the family members is still generationally still living in it. And so just maybe even trying to get some artifacts from there. Like they have a pecan tree, they have a bay leaf tree, and maybe even trying to incorporate some of that. So, I definitely think that the artistic nature, because I can, in my mind, I'm thinking artistically how you could create something, and then also keeping that history, the heirloom of all of that too.
Oh, I think you're going to be a quilter in another couple of years once you retire. I feel it that it's coming out. You start to ruminate in your mind what you could do with it, and the fact that you collect fabric or love to get fabric. So I'm sure that you will join the quilting club and be a quilter. It's a wonderful hobby, pastime. It's relaxing, and most of us that love fabric, we love quilting. So I'm sure you will eventually join the quilters, Anita. But yeah, so everybody's work was beautiful, and thank you for sharing it. We got a couple of comments in which let's see, it said everything looks great. Nancy, your quilt was great. That was from Bob. That it looks really nice, and was a comment about the Baltimore quilt. She loved when a lady, Cheryl, loved your Baltimore quilt, and just all of the quilts that were shown. They said they were beautiful, and they like to hear all of the backstories to our quilting journeys, and so it was wonderful to have this chat. And I think that, going forward, like whenever we create something individually, we might think of it saying, oh, I want this to definitely be passed down and, to someone, or make it so that it would be an heirloom quilt. And then the people that feel like they can use it, like you love using yours, Anita, and now you just use it gently because you want to be able to keep it, but you still use it. So, it's a good thing because it brings you comfort and peace. And that's what quilting was really all about: comfort and,
Right.
peace and warmth and a warm hug. Mary, you said you felt like a warm hug from your grandma, and everything. And so, it's a beautiful thing to do, and I'm grateful that you ladies decided that you agreed to join me today in this chat. Thank you so much, and happy quilting, and enjoy your wonderful season of Thanksgiving with your family and your friends. And again, I really appreciate you joining me today on this chat.
Thank
And
you
so,
for having us.
Thank you.
yeah,
Appreciate the time to
Thank
share.
you.
yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.
Happy
Enjoy.
quilting. All right.
Be
Take
safe.
care. All righty.
Hey, you
God
too.
bless. All right, bye.
Thank you.
All right.
Yep.
Thanks, Nancy. See you. Have a good day.
Okay, great job, Lisa.
Okay, thank you.
Well done, Nancy.